Good day, everyone. It's JB coming to you from somewhere in the record sphere as we continue to look into the artists and music in my record collection. We are rolling deep in the heart of Minneapolis with the second of a series of episodes relating to Prince. The first of these episodes gave you a history of Mr. Nelson up to his contract with Warner Records and the first 3 albums, consisting of For You, the self-titled album, and Dirty Mind, which were the 3 albums contracted by Warner Brothers. We'll continue to look further into subsequent albums in order and share interesting information from his life at the time of each release. Following the release of Dirty Mind, which, stated previously, had seen the initial formation of Prince's band, The Revolution, though they weren't credited as such on the Dirty Mind album, there came the Controversy album in 1981. There were many big years for Prince. I mean, he had been releasing 1 album a year since the debut, and the year 1981 was another of those big years. Before First Avenue was known as First Avenue, it went by another name. A short stint as a disco club called Uncle Sam's, and then just Sam's in the mid to late 1970s. Acts such as the Ramones, Pat Benatar, Bo Diddley, U2, and many others performed at the Reborn Rock venue. Prince first played at Sam's on March 9, 1981, shortly before the release of the Controversy album. Wearing a trench coat and shimmering bodysuit, he brought the crowd along for an energetic 95-minute set. This was actually a secret performance, where he and the band were billed under the name Controversy. Even though there was no marketing for the event and no physical tickets were sold, word of mouth spread and the venue completely sold out. The song Do Me Baby, a song that became one of Prince's most iconic slow songs, failed to chart at all upon the release of the album. But in his memoir, The Beautiful Ones, Prince stated, "That's my jam." Full credit can't go to Prince on that one though, as Andre Cymone helped write parts of the song as well. Also, the song Private Joy was the first song where Prince used a drum machine, something that he would continue to build a relationship with in future album releases. Back to Sam's nightclub for a quick spell, it was New Year's Eve, December 31st, 1981, that Sam's was renamed First Avenue and was forever changed. The secret performance at Sam's, aka First Avenue, that was mentioned earlier, may have been preparation for Prince's big-time arena debut, where he and the band were opening for the Rolling Stones. This is a well-documented part of Prince's life, as the genre-bending and gender-bending performances as the opening act didn't go over so well with the audience. Drummer Bobby Z explained that stuff started being thrown on stage and it wasn't panties and bras. Bobby Z says it felt like incoming torpedoes. A Jack Daniels bottle missed Prince's head by 1/4 of an inch and it crashed against the drum riser. There was a moment when he thought, is this it? How do we recover from this? But that was also a defining moment for Prince. He really dug in his heels, pun intended. His confidence skyrocketed, and he ended up putting out the spectacular double LP of 1999. "1999 was constructed almost entirely on synthesizers by Prince himself. Naturally, the effect was slightly more mechanical and robotic than his previous work and strongly recalled the electro-funk experiments of several underground funk and hip-hop artists at the time. Prince had also constructed an album dominated by computer funk, but he didn't simply rely on the extended instrumental grooves to carry the album. He didn't have to, when his songwriting was improving by leaps and bounds. The first side of the record contained all of the singles, and unsurprisingly, they were the ones that contained the least amount of electronics. The name The Revolution first appeared on the cover of 1999, written in reverse as a mirror image underneath Prince's name. The departure of Des Dickerson from Prince's band found its replacement with Wendy Melvoin. Prince's memoir states that the original first line of the song 1999 was, "I was tripping when I wrote this," not the version that appeared on the album, which is, "I was dreaming when I wrote this." Prince also goes back to using the Linn drum machine that he previously experimented with on the Controversy album for the song Private Joy. Prince and the band utilized the drum machine to its fullest, making new sounds and helping to solidify what was known as the Minneapolis Sound. His first top 10 crossover single, Little Red Corvette, with its creeping synth melody, its clever lyricism and wordplay. Younger listeners enjoy his literal lyricism of riding around in a red Corvette, while its older listeners laugh to themselves at the figurative language of a different kind of ride. All this time, while riding out the success of Controversy in 1999, Prince had been making other plans to launch himself into superstardom. He did that with what would become his magnum opus, Purple Rain, a semi-autobiographical look at his upbringing and rise to stardom in the city of Minneapolis. This was not just going to be an album. It was going to be a movie with a soundtrack that defied soundtracks to become one of the first albums to be certified platinum in the United States and became one of the biggest selling albums of all time. Maybe Prince should have held off on the Controversy name, though, as the Purple Rain album also sparked one of the biggest controversies in the U.S. According to Rolling Stone magazine, he had been crisscrossing the country, performing for bigger and bigger crowds, and his aspirations had multiplied. Now he was back on familiar turf, playing his first full show at the First Avenue Club in more than a year. At the last minute, he decided to call in a mobile recording truck and have his set taped professionally. The place was just absolutely packed to the rafters, recalled Prince tour manager Alan Leeds. Steve McClellan, who ran First Avenue at the time, was afraid the fire marshals were going to come and close us down. The concert marked the first appearance of the Revolution's new guitarist, a teenage Wendy Melvoin. It was also the public debut of the song that would define the next chapter of Prince's career and, in some ways, the rest of his life. Much of the movie was shot right here in Minneapolis, with many great scenes filmed in the downtown area, as well as inside scenes inside First Avenue. Unbelievably, the recording of that very first performance of Purple Rain, with some edits and a touch of some strings, would be the actual version that was used in the movie and on the record. Tapes of the First Avenue show also provided the basic tracks for I Would Die For You and Baby I'm a Star. Almost exactly a year later, with the album already a sensation, the movie premiered and Prince's global takeover was complete. Parts of the Purple Rain movie were shot in Henderson, Minnesota, just south of the Twin Cities. Scenes which depicted Prince and Apollonia by the river, where she was supposed to purify herself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka, were shot in Henderson by the banks of the Minnesota River. A quaint little town, Henderson has a good relationship with Prince fans, now sporting a Prince mural, and was once the home of a life-sized bronze Prince statue and memorial bench, among other things, but those have since moved on to other locations. You can still drive the Purple Rain Trail, which will take you to the iconic movie location to relive those special moments from the movie. Just be aware, if you decide to purify yourself in the waters, there's probably people watching. Purity wasn't on the mind of Tipper Gore when she listened to the Purple Rain album for the first time, though. She's the reason we have parental advisory labels on albums with explicit lyrics. Vice President Al Gore's wife, Elizabeth Tipper Gore, first realized that some records could use disclaimers while listening to Prince's Purple Rain with her 11-year-old daughter. Specifically, these lyrics from Darling Nikki. As she later wrote in Raising PG Kids in an X-Rated Society from 1987, quote, "The vulgar lyrics embarrassed both of us. At first, I was stunned. Then I got mad. Millions of Americans were buying Purple Rain with no idea what to expect." So, in 1985, she formed the Parents Music Resource Center, PMRC, with the support of several political wives, such as Susan Baker, married to Treasury Secretary James Baker, who joined the cause after her 7-year-old daughter started quoting Madonna's Like a Virgin and asking what a virgin was. The PMRC released The Filthy 15, a list of songs that should be banned or labeled, naturally featuring Prince and Madonna. Now, musicians John Denver and Dee Snider of Twisted Sister and Frank Zappa testified at a Senate hearing about record labeling, an idea Zappa called the equivalent of treating dandruff by decapitation. But the band played on, with or without labels, and continued their rise to superstardom with Around the World in a Day, a psychedelic romp that showed a different side of Prince and the Revolution. Released in April 1985, just 2 weeks after the final date on the Purple Rain tour, the album is not as explicit as his previous endeavors. Around the World in a Day is filled with cryptic religious imagery, bizarre mysticism, and confounding metaphors which are drenched in heavily processed guitars, shimmering keyboards, grandiose strings, and layers of vocals. As an album, the record is a bit impenetrable, requiring great demands of the listener, but individual songs do shine through. Raspberry Beret is a brilliant piece with an undeniable chorus. Pop Life is a snide swipe at stardom that emphasizes Prince's outsider status. Condition of the Heart is a great ballad, and America is a good funk jam. Now, as a side note, America is one of my favorite tracks from the album. Paisley Park is heavy and has a slightly creepy guitar riff, while the title track is a playful, sunny, kaleidoscopic romp reminiscent of the Magical Mystery Tour. In 1986, Prince, riding high off the success of his semi-autobiographical movie Purple Rain, jumped into the movie business again, this time self-directing Under the Cherry Moon, and a subsequent album and soundtrack with Parade. In Under the Cherry Moon, Prince plays Christopher Tracy, a gigolo who, along with his brother Tricky, played by Jerome Benton, beds rich women across the French Riviera. Eventually, he targets loaded heiress Mary Sharon, played by Kristen Scott Thomas, only to fall in love. Released at the peak of Prince's working relationship with Warner Brothers, Under the Cherry Moon's black and white cinematography looks like the theatrical releases of yesteryear. The smoky nightclubs are reminiscent of Casablanca, and Prince and Jerome's teasing remind the viewer of an updated Abbott and Costello routine. While audiences largely slept on the film, it didn't even hit the top 10. Prince's Parade, the album that came with the movie, became Prince's third consecutive top 5 album in America and the UK, and spun off his third US #1 hit, the stripped-down funk number Kiss. The song Kiss was actually given to another Paisley Park record group, Maserati, but after Prince heard what they had done with the song, he took it back. The demo track for Kiss that Prince gave to Maserati was a stripped-down acoustic guitar and vocal version. But when Maserati got a hold of it, David Z, Bobby Z's brother, took the track and punched it up extensively. The version you hear on the Parade album is essentially the David Z version, although he remains uncredited. The song Kiss reached #1 and helped make the Parade album a smashing success. At this time, Prince's band The Revolution had been growing tired and thought that Prince may have been feeling the same way. Although they had recorded some tracks for their next album, Sign of the Times, they would not take prominent billing as with the other Prince and the Revolution albums. Here, members of the Revolution talked to Backspin about the transition between the two albums and when they knew the band was breaking up.
Obviously, Purple Rain was the pinnacle of his, like, I'm a pop star and these are masterpiece pop songs, right? But afterwards, he started, like, the roots started going in all these different areas, and he was trying to cherry pick all these different elements of himself to explore. I mean, from, you know, Christopher Tracy's Parade to, you know, Dorothy Parker. I mean, it's just like, wow, that is incredible. That's amazing reach.
You know, I had been in all those bands with him, and he was starting to become, finally, after being a superstar all those years, kind of like, you know, I kind of want to do this myself again. You know, I was kind of getting the sense that he, you know, that we had become such a huge part of his everyday life that he may have, well, we know now that he was kind of growing a little tired of it. Mm-hmm. And we're a handful. I mean, you know, we're not like, we weren't just sidemen, you know, we were the Revolution, and we opened our mouths often.
You know, I knew something shifted our last night at Yokohama Stadium. He started calling a whole bunch of different people on stage with us while we were playing. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he hadn't done that before. And we knew him, and I knew him so well. And there wasn't a lot of, he wasn't looking at us. I could feel it. And then we played Purple Rain, and he destroyed the guitar.
More than one.
He destroyed it. And I looked at Bobby, and I went,
It's over.
Yeah.
I looked at Lisa, it's over. And it was over.
There was Trouble in Paradise before this, so they had already, Wendy and Lisa kind of had enough in Minneapolis at one point, so I had to go to the airport to convince them. So with Prince, it's like he knew he had to go to Japan. We knew he had to do this, but, you know, I knew we all knew something was going on, and by rescuing mission to bring them back, you know, it's always an odd kind of feeling. We played the music. So he may have harbored that a little bit, and I think he
They didn't like anybody to leave him.
I was gone a year prior. I had quit before the Parade tour.
That's right.
They didn't know that. You know, he wouldn't let me tell them. And but I had enough way back then, you know, because things were changing so rapidly. You know, there was a lot of internal stuff going on, and I decided to move on. And, you know, went under contract and kept my mouth shut, and we went out.
When he invited Lisa and I over to his rental in L.A., I knew it was coming. I just knew it, and I was bereft. I was horribly. I was like, what? Now? Why? But, you know, you can't swim upstream when someone's done. When someone's done, they're done, and you have to go, okay. You just have to go, okay.
When I return for the next episode, I'll be talking about Sign of the Times and Prince's foray into a new sound with drummer Sheila E., as well as albums released after Sign. Stay tuned, subscribe, and hit the notification button so you can keep updated when new broadcasts appear. I'll catch you next time, Prince fans.
Kiss.